Good evening, everyone. This is one more session with respect to process management concept. So, before starting with the today's session, if my voice is clear as well as able to see the screen properly, please type 1 in the chat box. If my voice is clear as well as able to see the screen properly, please type 1 in the chat box. Okay, thank you very much. If able to recollect, what is the discussion we did in the last lecture? Will you agree? In the last lecture, we are trying to understand what is a process. We are trying to understand what is a multiprocessing, how many types of multiprocessings. Tell me how many types of multiprocessings? Will you agree? There are two types of multiprocessings. One is hardware multiprocessing and another one is software multiprocessing. Now tell me, in hardware multiprocessing, for every process, there is a dedicated CPU. Hmm? For every process, there is a dedicated CPU. Now I need to ask you one question. In your mobile phone, maybe quad-core processor is there. So is it environment in your mobile phone? Is it a hardware multiprocessing or a software multiprocessing? Software multiprocessing only. In a software multiprocessing, what happens is one CPU is going to be shared by multiple processes. Again, in software multiprocessing, what happens is one CPU is going to be shared by multiple processes. Can you tell me in which multiprocessing the operating system process manager role is very important, very crucial? In which environment operating system role is very crucial? Can I say software multiprocessing? So what is the process manager? Now can I say there are multiple processes and single CPU is there. There should be some responsible person to manage that. There are multiple processes and a single CPU. There should be some responsible person to manage that. That is nothing but a process manager. There should be some responsible person to manage that. That is nothing but a process manager. Now, can you tell me process manager is present in the user space or in a kernel space? Process manager is present in the user space or in a kernel space. Can I say process manager is present in a kernel space? But processes are present in the but processes are present in the can I say processes are present in the user space in a RAM only. User space, kernel space, those are RAM only. After that, we are trying to understand foreground process and background process. Now tell me, on the command prompt, when you simply type /a.out, when I simply type /a.out, will my process runs in the foreground or background in the terminal? Again, on the command prompt, when I type /a.out enter button, so my program runs in the foreground or in the background in a current terminal. Can I say it is a foreground? How to make my process to run in the background? Can I say /a.out ampersand symbol? Will you agree? /a.out and ampersand symbol. Suppose there are three processes. Suppose there are three processes running in the background. Just a minute. Suppose there are three processes running in the background. One process job ID is one process ID is some 123. Another process job ID is 2, 124. Another process job ID is 3, 125. So how many processes are running in the background? There are three processes First process job ID is 1. What is the job ID? Today we need to discuss it. Process ID is 123. Second process job ID is 2. Process ID is 124. Third process job ID is 3. Process ID is 125. Now tell me, when I simply type FG, which process will move to the foreground? Which process? Process 125 process. Whose job ID is 3. Now tell me, if I type FG space 2, can which process will come to the foreground? Can I say second process? Now can you tell me, without moving to the foreground, if you want to kill the process, if you want to terminate the process, background only, can I say kill -9 signal process ID? Kill -9 process ID. 9 is nothing but signal number. What is the signal number and all other things? We'll discuss it later. So kill is a command to send a signal to a process. Note it down. Kill is a command to send a signal to a process. Kill is a command to send a signal to a process. -9 is nothing but forceful killing. -9 is nothing but forceful killing. After that, in a last lecture, will you agree there is one concept is pending? What is that? In a last lecture, one concept is pending. What is that? Memory layout is very simple. Stack section, data section, code section, heap section. What is a shell? So before the discussion of what is a shell, try to understand today's agenda, today's concepts, what we are going to discuss it is, we are trying to understand once again what is the concurrent execution and sequential execution. What is the concurrent execution, sequential execution? We need to understand what is the process ID and its parent process ID. And we need to understand some definitions here. What is the response time? What is the starvation time? And what is the turnaround time? What is the throughput? These are the theoretical things we need to discuss it. Apart from that, if time permits, we need to talk about states of a process. Again, if time permits, we need to talk about states of a process. In between this only, we need to talk about the shell. Is it clear? So first, we need to talk about concurrent. What is the exact meaning of concurrent execution and sequential execution? And what is this process ID and its parent process ID? When I'm talking about the point number 2, we need to talk about shell. Again, when I'm talking about a point number 2, we need to talk about a shell. Will you agree? And next, point number 3, we need to talk about some definitions. What is the meaning of response time? What is the meaning of starvation time? What is the meaning of turnaround time? What is the meaning of throughput? Next, we need to talk about the states of a process. It's clear? Type C in the chat box so that we'll move to the first point in the today's. Now tell me, consider there are two situations. Situation 1 and situation 2. Two environments, environment 1, environment 2. Now suppose there are only one CPU is there. There are multiple processes are there. P1, P2, P3, P4. Here also the same thing. there is one CPU, there are multiple processes P1, P2, P3, P4. Will you agree? Every process is doing its work. Now, will you agree? Paint application is doing its work. Notepad application is doing its work. Zoom application is doing its work. Huh? Every process will do one specific task. If you agree with this, type 2 in the chat box. Every process will do one job. If you agree with this, type 2 in the chat box. Now tell me, in the situation 1, how many processes are there? 4 processes. What are the names of the process? P1, P2, P3, P4. In a situation 2 also, same processes P1, P2, P3, P4. Now you tell me, after total completion of P1, if P2 gets the chance to execute, after total completion of P2, P3 gets the chance to execute. After total completion of P3, P4 get the chance to execute. So this environment is called as, after total completion of P1, if P2 is executing, after total completion of P2, P3 is executing, after total completion of P3, P4 is executing, that environment is called as, that execution is called as sequential execution. That execution is called as sequential execution. After total completion of one process, if another process is getting the CPU time to execute, after total completion of that another process, the next process is getting the CPU time to execute. So that is called as a sequential execution. But observe, in the situation 2, P1 process is not yet completed, P2 will get the CPU time. P2 is not yet completed, P3 will get the CPU time. P3 is not yet done, P4 will get the CPU time. Again P1 will get the CPU time. Again P2, again P3, again P4, like this. So before completion of one process, if another process gets the CPU time, that environment is called as, before completion of one process, if another process gets the CPU time to execute, that environment is called as concurrent environment or concurrent execution. If all of you are getting this point, type 2 in the chat box. If all of you are getting this point, type 2 in the chat box. So in a left hand side, what happening is, in a situation 1, this environment is in such a way that after total completion of P1, P2 will get the CPU time to execute. After total completion of P2, P3 will get the CPU time to execute. After total completion of P3, P4 will get the CPU time to execute. So that environment is called as, that execution of the processes is called as sequential. In the right side, what happens is, P1 execution is not yet completed. Even though P1 execution is not yet completed, P1 instructions execution is not yet completed, P2 is getting the CPU time. Even though P2 instructions are not yet completed, not done, P3 getting the CPU time. So such type of environment is called as concurrent environment. Now tell me, in our operating system, Windows operating system or Ubuntu Linux operating system, is it a sequential execution or is it a concurrent execution? Whatever the environment we are using, is it a sequential execution or is it a concurrent execution? In which environment user feels that all my applications are running? In which environment user feels that all my applications are running at a time? In which environment user feels that all my applications are running at a time? Can I say in a concurrent environment? Can I say multiprocessing can be done better way when you go for a concurrent? Multiprocessing can be achieved better way when you go for a concurrent. If I accept this statement, type 2 in the chat box. If I accept this statement, type 2 in the chat box. Now observe what is the meaning of this. Before completion of one process, if another process starts executing, then the situation is called as a concurrent execution. Again, before completion of one process, if another process starts executing, can I say that environment is a concurrent environment. After completion of one process, if another process starts executing, then the situation is called as a sequential environment. In multi-programming environment, the concurrent execution happens. In a multi-programming environment, the concurrent execution happens. Any doubt in this slide, please let me know. If no doubt, type 3 in the chat box. If any doubt in this, please let me know. If no doubt, type 3 in the chat box. So, in multi-programming environment, concurrent execution, in multi-programming environment, concurrent execution happens. It's clear? Okay, then we'll move to the next. We'll move to the next point. What is the next point? Process ID and its parent process ID. Process ID and its parent process ID. Yesterday I told you one point. Whenever a process is created, what the process manager will do, it will assign one unique ID to that process. Again, whenever a process is created, will you agree, the process manager will assign one unique ID to that process to identify that process. So observe this point. Each process has process ID, PID. It is a positive integer that is uniquely identifies the process on the system. Again, each process has a process ID. It is a positive integer that is uniquely identifies the process in the system. Now, if you want to print the process ID, we need to use one function. What is the function name? If we want to print the process ID, we need to use one function, that is getPID. Again, if you want to use the process ID, which function we need to use? We need to use getPID. What is a getPID? What you need to pass to the function? Can you tell me what you need to pass to this function? Can I say you need to pass nothing? What it will return? What it will return? Can I say it will return one integer? I don't know, you remembered or not, when I'm talking about a typedef concept, I might have used this. When we go for the Linux programming, there may be so many new data types we'll observe. These data types are internally related to an integer only. So the designers of Linux operating system, instead of writing here int, they mentioned as a PID underscore t. So this is an unsigned integer, means one number, like size underscore t and all other things. These are type defed somewhere. Will you agree? These are type defed somewhere. So what is the header file we need to include? What is the header file we need to include? What is the header file we need to include? unistd.h. So what is the function to get the process ID? Get PID. Now tell me, every time will you get the same ID? Observe, let me show you the program here. Yesterday also we checked it, that one. Anyway, let's now vi 2508 underscore 1.c stdio.h unistd.h void main printf PID is equals to %d slash n comma get PID. Just I'm printing the process ID. I'm printing the process ID. Let me compile the code. Let me run the code. Let me compile the code. Let me run the code. 44, 45. Will you agree? Every time, even though you are executing the same program, you are getting the different ID. Even though you are getting the same program, you are getting the different ID. Can you tell me now how many processes I created? Just now, how many processes I created? 3 processes. Are the processes are still executing or terminated? Are the processes are still executing or completed? Can I say completed? Because I didn't use while one, BE8, E2. Try to understand the code here. I didn't kept any while one, so can I say my program is going to terminate immediately? My program is going to terminate immediately. Now you tell me, if I put while one, if I put while one semicolon, now tell me, when I compile this code, when I run this code, now tell me my process, the ID is 53. Is it running in the foreground or background? My process ID is 53. Is it running in the foreground or background? Foreground. Now can you tell me why the command prompt not came? Can you tell me here why the command prompt not came? Because my process is in a while one loop. Now can you tell me how to terminate this process? Can you tell me how to terminate this process? How to terminate this process? Can I say you need to press Ctrl C. Suppose I don't want to terminate by pressing Ctrl C. Can you tell me what I need to do? If I don't want to terminate, kill command. But where should I use a command? Now tell me, where should I use a command? Because your foreground, this process is running. Will you agree? Getting the point? Where should I use this command? Because here the foreground, one process is running. Now tell me, if I write kill -953, is that command is executing? Kill -953 command is executing? No. So what I will do is just I'll open one more terminal. I'll open one more terminal. Now type ps-e. When we type ps-e, -e means no matter how many terminals you opened, all the processes it will display. Now can I use here kill command? Kill -953. Kill -953. Now can you tell me how many terminals I opened here? Can you tell me how many terminals I opened here? Can I say 2 terminals I opened here? Now tell me, if my process might have running in the background, if my process might have running in the background, can I kill this? Can I use the command now? All of you are getting the advantage of the running the process in the background. If the process is running in the background, I can do foreground some other work. If my process is running in the background, I can do foreground some other work. Now observe PS, it is killed. So what is the function to get the process ID? What is the function to get the process ID? Can I say get PID? Observe, the Linux kernel limits the process ID to be less than or equals to 32767 defined in PID_max. What happens if we kill command on init? One of the student is asking, if you kill the init, what happens? The terminal gets closed. The terminal gets closed. Getting the point? Okay. Now observe, whenever you are creating the process, keep on process manager is giving a new IDs, right? Again, I hope you might have observed, every time when I run the process manager is giving the new ID, yes or no? What is the limit? Is there any limit for that? Answer is yes. Observe, all of you are observing this path here, /proc/sys/kernel PID_max. I'll try to show you this thing. vi/proc/sys/kernel/PID_max. Now tell me, in this my Ubuntu environment, what is the limit? 32768. In this my Windows subsystem Ubuntu environment, 32768. So this is a maximum. After 32768, again it will start from the beginning. This is one integer. Try to understand, whenever you are creating the process, every time the process manager is giving the new ID. So what is the limit of that ID? The limit of that ID is 32768. MBE8 M2, got the point? Limit of that ID is 32768. After that, after reaches the 32768, again it will start from the beginning. BE8 M2, got the point? Okay, so that limit is defined where? In a /proc sys/kernel, there is one file called PID_max. So in this file, that limit is defined. So it is a maximum limit of processes we can run. Answer is, we can say at one particular point of view, we can say yes. BE8 S1 is asking one interesting question. Sir, is it the maximum limit of processes we can run? Means answer is yes. Up to one extent, we can say yes. Can we change this limit? Answer is no, we can't change this limit. As a system programmer, we can't change this limit. K5. As a system programmer, we can't change this limit because it is a read only. Okay, we can't change this limit. Let's come to this PPT. So in Linux kernel, the limit kernel limits the process ID to be less than or equals to 32768. In my laptop, you can check in your laptop or in your environment. In Linux, the PID_max is available in the file /proc/sys/kernel PID_max. Any doubt in these 2 points? If no doubt, type 2. Sir, if it starts from 1, when it reaches max, then see, when it reaches max, after that max, again it will not start from 1. Why? Because 1 is already there for init. When it is assigning, it will check that number is freely available or not. Then it will assign it. Simply it will not assign it. What is the use of this PID, sir? What is the use of the PID? Can you tell me what is the use of your ID V20BE9M1 for reference? Will you agree? What is the use of Aadhaar number? What is the use of the PAN card? When ID will be there, identification, reference purpose. So similarly, whenever a process is created, process manager will assign one ID to the process, that is called as a process ID. We can't change the process ID. Sir, if more than 32768 processes are running, what happens? The process will not create. New process will not create. New process will not create. Already, when if you create 32768 processes, your system will get stuck. Definitely your system will get stuck because those many processes, only single CPU, those many processes are there. So you can't, it's very difficult. So K5 is asking, sir, can we change the file permissions? K5 is asking one question not relevant to this topic. You may change it. Change file permissions, you can change it. But try to understand, as a system programmer, our job is just to communicate with the process manager. Kernel to kernel, this limit will vary. Not OS to OS, we can say OS to OS or kernel to kernel, this limit will vary. One kernel to another kernel, the limits will vary. So N1 is asking, sir, one process with terminated, will the PID will not be used again? Yes. When one process is terminated, once again the process manager will not assign that PID to somebody else until and unless it reaches 32768, then only again it will assign it. Now observe, when my process is terminated, suppose observe, when my process is terminated, can I say this ID will be freely available? Observe this program. Can I say 131 ID is now freely available, that process is terminated, but process manager will not assign that ID to somebody else. It will assign the new next sequentially available number. Getting the point? Next sequentially available number it will assign. Okay, that is one point. After restart means after 32768, it will not start again from 1, because some of the IDs which is permanently available, some of the processes till you switch off the system, it will be available. Which number is free, that number it will assign. It will not start from the 1. BE9 M5, got the point? Because 1 is already assigned to the init process. Now observe, the next point is, each process has a parent. That process that created it. Means in a Linux environment, every process must and should be created by another process. So if this process is created, this process, can I say this is the parent process, this is the child process? All of you are observing this point. In a Linux environment, for every process, there should be one parent process. How to get the parent ID? How to get the parent process ID? What is the function to use to get the parent process ID? What is the function to use to get the parent process ID? Get PPID. Again, get PPID is a parent process ID. Is it clear? Get PPID to print the parent process ID. So for every process, there should be one parent process. Now observe, PID is equals to %d, PPID is equals to %d slash n get PID, comma get PPID. Now tell me, in this program, I'm trying to print two informations. One information is a process ID and another information is its parent process ID. Again, in this program, I'm trying to print two informations. One information is a process ID and another information is its parent process ID. Another information is its parent process ID. Now observe, PID is 139, PPID is 8. PID is 140, PPID is 8. Will you agree? For all these processes, whatever I created just now, parent is same 8, parent is same 8. Now let's see what is that 8 here. Can you tell me what is that 8? Who is that 8? Who is that 8 here? Whatever the processes I created in this terminal, the parent is same. What is that parent ID is 8. Who is that? Can I say bash, BASH? Can I say that is a bash? Now we need to understand what is a bash. All of you are following this. Type 8 in the chat box. All of you are following this discussion. Type 8 in the chat box. So what is the point is, every process should have its parent process. Whenever we create a process here, whenever we run one program, whenever we execute any command, whenever we run one program, for this program one ID will be there. This process is created by another process. That process is a parent process. Here in my laptop, in my terminal, so PID is, I'm getting a PPID, I'm getting as a 8. 8 is nothing but a bash, BASH. Now we need to understand what is a bash. First point I need to tell you, bash is a shell. Now I need to discuss about the shell. PPID is constant for all the processes which are running here in this terminal. Again, PPID is a constant for all the processes in this command prompt. In this command prompt, PPID will be the different. CD Linux _89 process management. Now observe /a.out. What is the PPID here? Can you tell me what is the PPID here? 55. Who is that 55? Can you tell me? Who is that 55? Can you tell me? Here also one bash. Here also one bash. So V20, just a minute, one student is asking, E2 is asking one question, PPID constant for all processes. Next time PPID will not change or not? Next time PPID parent will be the same. Now here for all these processes, parent will be the bash only. Parent will be this bash only. Okay, in this terminal, the parent is this bash, whose ID is 55. Here whose ID is 8. Now what is the bash we need to understand? That's what I'm coming to that point. What is the bash we are trying to understand? What is the point? What is the bash? Can I say bash is a shell? Point number 1. Bash is a shell. Second, what is a shell? S8 is asking one question, sir. If you do another program and then execute, bash will be the same. Yes. How many programs if you run in this terminal, if you execute the process, so for this process the parent will be the same. No matter P1.c, P2.c, P3, how many programs when you run. Now will you agree, for PS also the bash will be 8 only? PS-L. Observe, for PS also bash is, parent ID is 8 only. One of the student is asking when it will change. N3, please wait. First let's understand what is a bash. Then let's understand what is the bash, then you will get it. What is the bash? If you understand, then you will get it. So first let's understand what is the bash, then I'll address all your questions. Please don't type the questions in the chat box. I'll give the time to ask the questions. So what is a bash? Bash is a shell. Bash is a shell. Shell is nothing but command interpreter. Again, I need to move to the yesterday's PPT. And if you're observing this, this is yesterday's things. What is the bash? Bash is a shell. Shell is a command interpreter. Command interpreter. Observe, shell is user program which is used to interact with OS. Shell is one program which is used to interact with OS. Shell is one of the interface or one of the user program to interact with operating system. Shell is a command interpreter. Observe, shell is a command language interpreter that executes the commands read from the standard input device or a file. Yesterday, one of the student is telling about a shell scripting, means sequential command execution. So in a shell scripting, what happens is you need to supply one file to the shell. What the shell will do in this file, what are the commands are there, those commands it will execute. Shell is a command interpreter. Shell is a mediator between user and operating system on the command based environment. Again, on the command based environment, if you want to interact with the OS via shell, you need to interact. Shell is called as a command interpreter. Now, can you tell me from the day one onwards, we are saying this as a command prompt. Will you agree? From the day one onwards, we are using the term called command prompt. Now, will you agree what I need to type here? What I need to type here? Can I say we need to type the commands? Every command will do one task. Please, those who are comfortable with the keyboard, please try to reply it. So, every command will do one task. So, from the day one onwards, we are typing so many commands in the command prompt. Now, you may get a doubt, who is taking this input? Now, who is taking this input when I type ls command here? Who is taking this command as an input? Answer is shell is taking this command as an input. What the shell will do now? What this shell will do when you type the command here, when you type ls, can I say shell will interact with the OS and OS will create a process, and OS will make, for this process, it will make shell as a parent. Bash is one shell. Yes, command prompt. This type of shells are only present in the Linux OS. Yes, we can say. Now, all of you are observing bash. Bash is one shell. Shell is one application. Again, when you type ls command here, who is taking this ls as an input? When I type ls here, who is taking that ls as an input? Can I say shell? Which shell here? Bash shell. Now, when I type ls command here, this command is taken by the shell. Shell will interact with the OS. Then OS, what it will do? For this command, it will create one process. It will generate one process. And what the OS will do is, it will make this as a parent to this. What the OS will do, OS will make this shell as a parent to this. Let's understand once again. Now tell me, when you type here dot slash a dot out, who is taking this input from us? Who is taking this input from us? Can I say bash shell? After taking this input, what the bash shell will do? After taking this input command, what the bash shell will do? It will communicate with the OS. Then what the OS will do? It gives to OS, correct. What the OS will do? OS will create one new process called a.out. After creating the new process by OS, this a.out, what the OS will do? It will make this as a parent to this a.out. All of you are getting the point? After making this a.out, so after creating this a.out, what the operating system will do, it will make that bash as a parent to this a.out, because from this bash only the command request came. So that is the reason every time when I execute one command here, who is the parent for that? All of you are observing this diagram. All of you understood this point? All of you understood this point? Type 3 in the chat box. That is the reason every time when we execute a process here, the parent is the bash only. The parent process is the bash only. Bash is one shell. There are so many types of shells are there. Shell is not a part of the kernel. All of you are observing here. Shell is not a part of the service. It is an application. It is not a part of the service. It is a part of the shell is making parent as bash. No, operating system is making parent as a bash. Bash is one shell. Don't think that shell is different, bash is different. Bash is one type of shell, BE9S15. Bash is one shell. There are so many types of shells are there. SH shell, bash shell, KSH shell, like this, so many shells are there. Now, can you tell me who is waiting for the input here? Can you tell me who is waiting for the input here? Who is waiting for the input here? Can I say you need to type input here? Will you agree? You need to supply one input here. Who is waiting for that input? Can I say shell? Which shell? Which shell is waiting here? Yes, for shell also parent will be there. For shell also parent will be there. For bash also parent will be there. Observe when I type ps hyphen l. Now can you tell me for bash who is a parent? Can you tell me for bash who is a parent? Who is ppid? Who is a parent for the bash? Who is at 7? Can I say 7 is the parent ID of the bash? When I type ps-el, now tell me who is a 7 there? Observe, this is our bash. Bash ID is 8. Its parent ID is 7. Who is a 7? 7 is init. Who is that init? Parent 1. What is that 1? Another init. For this init, who is a parent? 0. 0 is nothing but process manager, or we can call as scheduler. Process ID is 0. All of you are observing the process ID is 0 here. That is nothing but how you got this all these IDs. See, that's what. Just I typed ps-el. ps-e means entire terminal processes. How many terminals you are using? All the processes. L means long list. L means long list. Don't worry about the remaining informations. Don't worry about it. BE9C3, got the point? BE9C3, got the point. Now can I say indirectly all these are related to init only? I hope you might have remembered init is one of the process till you switch off the system, switch on the system to switch off the system, it will execute. Init process ID is one. Who will create the init kernel? Kernel is nothing but now here process manager or scheduler. Scheduler ID is 0. Now tell me, who is displaying this command prompt like this? I need to say bash shell. We need to say bash shell is displaying this command prompt like this. So whenever you open any terminal, by default, bash shell will run. Now can you tell me what command I am executing now? What is the name of the command? What is the name of the command? sh. Now observe, is there a difference between the command prompt? sh is also one type of shell. Now can you tell me who is waiting for the input here? Can you tell me who is waiting for the input here, bash or sh? Now who is waiting for the input here? Answer is sh is waiting. sh is also one type of shell. Now observe /a dot out. What is the PPID you got? /a dot out. What is the PPID you got? 151. Let's see PS. Who is that 151? Who is that 151? Is the bash or sh? Who is that 151? Is it a bash or sh? Can I say it is an sh? Now can you tell me who is a parent for this sh? Can you guess who is a parent for this sh? Bash. Because I am typing the sh command here, so sh started executing. Sh is also one type of shell like bash. So here sh is waiting for the input. Here who is waiting for the input? Sh is waiting for the input. All of you are getting the following this type 2 in the chat box. Bash command prompt is different. Sh command prompt is different. Sh command prompt will only dollar symbol, but bash command prompt will display little bit information on the screen. Now can you tell me if I type BASH, what is SH and bash? Those are the shells. M2, BE8, M2. SH is one shell, bash is one shell, shell is one program, shell is one application, shell is the command interpreter. What is the job of that? What is the job of that? To take the input from the command. BE8, M2, got the point? SH, bash, there are so many types of shells are there. Now tell me, when I type bash command here, all of you are observing, when I type bash here, who is taking that input? Who is this taking this input? Will you agree? SH is taking this input. Now observe, when you type PS, all of you are observing this bash, this sh, this bash. Now tell me, here the bash which is running here, which is waiting for the input, is it a 8 or is it a 155? Is it a 8 or is it a 155? Can I say 155? Now when I write /a dot out, I didn't get 8 as a parent ID. I got 155 as a parent ID. Now try to understand what happening is, by default when I open this application, so command prompt will come and bash will started executing. Again, by default when I open this application in this environment, my laptop environment, can I say by default bash will started executing. What is a bash ID? What is a bash ID? 8 here. In this bash I created sh. What is the SH process ID? 151. Under this SH, I created one more bash. What is this bash process ID? 155. Now, is this bash is waiting for the input, or 155 bash is waiting for the input? 155 is taking for the input. Now here, can I type SH? Now observe the sequence here. Observe here. So from the bash, I created SH, bash. From the bash, SH. Now what is this SH ID? What is the new SH ID? 165. Now tell me, if I execute any command here, who is the parent for that? If I execute any command here, who is the parent for that? Now tell me, BE9J1, try to understand, when I type one command here, who is the parent for that? Can I say SH? Which SH? 151 or 165? 165. How do I know? Will you agree when I write /a.out? Observe, PPID is 165. All of you are observing this type of things, very like little bit interesting and little bit new things, tricky and new things. You might have not thought all these things. Just you might have written the program, you might have compiled the program till now, but now the time came to think background something more. Now tell me, if I use exit command, who will terminate? If I use exit command, can I say this will terminate? This SH. Now here if I type exit, can I say which? Can I say this bash? Now here when I type exit, can I say this SH is also terminated? Now will you agree, if I type here exit, can I say that entire terminal gets closed? What is SH? SH is also one type of shell. How the bash is one shell, similarly SH is also one type of shell. Shell is an application. What is the job of this application? Take the input from the user, give it to the OS to execute. Got the point? All these are communicating with an operating system. Yes. Whenever we supply any command, shell will take that command and it will give it to the operating system. Operating system will create a process and operating system will make this as a parent. Is there any other shell we need to remember? No need to remember anything. There are so many types of shells will be there. If one of the student is asking why these type of shells, these many shells. Now, as I told you, shell is an application. Now, will you agree? Internet Explorer is there, Mozilla Firefox is there, some other web browsers are there. Similarly, here also. Bash and SH are different programs, but work is same. Bash and SH are different programs, but work is same, almost all. Got the point? But bash will display the command prompt like this, SH will not display the command prompt like this. Now in a bash, I don't know, some shortcut methods are there. Will you agree? Control L means it will clear the screen. Will you agree? Control L means in this bash, it will clear the screen. But in SH, Control L will not work. All of you are observing? Means can I say bash is little bit user friendly shell compared to the SH? And also, I don't know how many of you know, in bash shell, just you need to press the tab button so that remaining letters automatically will come. All of you are observing? In the bash shell, what happens is you need to type first two letters or first letter. You need to press the tab so that remaining letters automatically comes, but in sh it will not like that. In sh shell, if I type /a tab, all of you are observing, it is not working. Remaining letters, can I say she bash is little bit. This is a Linux OS shell. This is the Linux operating system, not a Windows. Yes10, try to understand. This is the Linux, right? Windows 10 people, they introduced Linux operating system as an application. One of the student is asking K5, absolutely correct. Sir, command prompt is also one shell in Windows. Yes, you can say. Command prompt which you are going to use in a Windows, that is also one shell, because it will take the commands. It will try to execute that commands, means it will interact with somebody else to execute those commands with the OS. I hope all of you are getting this point. Now there are so many types of shells are there. There are so many types of shells are there. If you want to know how many shells are present in your system, to use cat/etc/shells. Now observe, if I type cat/etc/shells, so these many: sh shell, bash shell, r bash shell, d bash shell, tumx shell, screen, like this. There are so many shells are there, but all these shells work is same. All these shells work is same. I don't know this r bash will work or not. See, r bash, this is also one shell. This is also interacts with the user. Maybe some advance or something will be there. Any doubt in this, please post the question in the chat box, or if you want to speak, my request to everyone, if you want to speak, please raise your hand so that I can enable your voice. Now tell me, who is waiting for the command in the command prompt now? Now I should not use the term command prompt now. I need to say bash is waiting. What is a bash? Bash is a shell. What is a shell? Shell is a command interpreter. What is the job of the command interpreter? It will interact with the user. User need to supply the command. Whatever the user is supplying the command, that command bash will give it to OS. OS will create a child one process, and it will make bash as a parent to that. It will make the bash as a parent to that process. Yeah, any doubt? Init is not a shell. Init is not a shell. Init is not a shell. Init is a normal process. See, user or some other utilities, command interpreter shell, and they will interact with a kernel interact with the hardware. Are you getting the point? Is this clear? What is the shell? Is it clear? Type 2 in the chat box. Okay. Now, from the day one onwards, when we started our journey of the C language, I'm using the term called, this is a command prompt. Now, can I say this command prompt is displayed by the bash shell. So here, whatever the program, if I execute, who is a parent for that program is bash. So I hope you got get PID, get PPID, what is a bash, what is a shell, and all other things. I hope you might have got it. Each process has parent process ID. So if this is clear, we'll move to the next discussion, terms related to process. Response time, starvation time, turnaround time, and throughput. Terms related to process management. If this is clear, type 2 so that we'll move to this discussion. If still anybody is having a doubt, again my sincere request to everyone, if you want to speak, please raise your hand, but these are very important. If you want to understand the threads, if you want to understand the multi-threading program, if you want to understand the semaphores, mutex, if you want to understand signals, all these things, this is very basic and very important. So let's move to the next discussion, starvation time. As I told you, these are some definitions. What is the meaning of response time? Observe. The time gap between the process is loaded into the RAM and its first instruction gets executed by the CPU is called as response time. All of you want, if you can note it down. The time gap between the process is loaded into the RAM for execution and its first instruction gets executed. Again, the time gap between the process is created, process is loaded into the RAM for execution, and its first instruction gets executed. That is called response time. Now try to understand one scenario here. There is a single CPU. There are P1, P2, P3. So suppose CPU is executing P1 instructions. Suppose new process P4 came. My question is this P4 starts executing immediately when it is created? My question is this P4 process 4 will start executing immediately when it is created? Answer is no. Because process manager will give CPU time slot for every process. Again, process manager will give CPU time slot to every process. Process manager will give CPU time slot to every process. Clear? So, what is when a process is created, don't expect that the process is immediately executed by the CPU. When a process is created, don't think that the process instructions are started executing immediately. User may feel like that. User may feel that when I double click, my process starts executing. But actually what happens is, when your process is created, immediately your process will not execute. The time gap between the process is created and the first instruction of the process started executing, that is called as the first instruction of the process is executing, that is called as response time. That is clear? Type C in the chat box. The time gap between the process is created and the first instruction of the process started executing, that is called as response time. Now you need to tell me, response time is more is a good environment or less is a good environment? Now you need to tell me, response time is more is a good environment or less is a good environment? Less is a good environment. Means when my process is created, immediately my process started executing. Means within a less time, if it started executing, that is a good environment. Those who given the answer as a more, try to understand that point. So response time is less is a good environment. Suppose you went somewhere for inquiry. So now tell me, response time, if they taken more time to respond it, is it a good, or less time to take a respond it is a good? Can I say obviously less time? So response time is nothing but the time gap between the process is created and the first response produced by the CPU, or the first instruction executed by the CPU. That time gap is called as a response time. Obviously, response time is less is a good environment. Next is the starvation time. Observe, a process in its life cycle, B9 D3 is saying the time gap between ./a.out and execution of hash include stdio.h. See, B9 D3 in an executable file, hash include will not be there. Try to understand B9 D3 in a.out file, hash include will not be there. Preprocessor will include the header files, right? That is a separate. The first instruction, whatever it may be, whatever the first instruction is there in your opcodes, whatever the first instruction is there in your opcode, that instruction. Is it clear? The time gap between the process is loaded into the RAM for execution and the first instruction gets executed, that is called as a response time. Starvation time. Starvation time. A process in its life cycle, how much starvated without executing by the CPU, that time is called as starvation time. Again, a process in its life cycle, how much starvated without executing by the CPU, how much starvated without executing by the CPU, that is called as a starvation time. Now try to understand this scenario. Now in a concurrent execution, now tell me here how many processes are there? Now here how many processes are there? Can I say 4 processes are there? P1, P2, P3, P4. Now my question is, when process manager given the CPU time to P1, can I say remaining processes are starvated? Remaining processes will not get executed by the CPU. So when CPU time is given to P2, can I say P1, P3, P4 are starvated? When the CPU time is given to P3, P1, P2, P4 is starvated. So a process in its life cycle means process creation to the completion. What is the meaning of starvation? Means stopping. Starvation is nothing but the general English meaning is stopping, without executing, without doing the work. Okay, starvation is nothing but stopping. So a process in its life cycle means, what is the meaning of life cycle? Process creation to process completion. In its, how much of time it is waiting for the CPU, how much of time it is waiting for the CPU time slot to get, that time is called as starvation time. Now tell me, starvation time is more is a good environment or less is a good environment? If a process is starvated less is a good environment, or if a process is starvated more is a good environment? Can I say if a process is starvated less is a good environment? If a process is starvated less is a good environment? Yes. How much time a process in its life cycle waiting for the CPU appointment or CPU time to get, that is called as a starvation time. B8, B2, absolutely correct. So a process in its life cycle, how much of time it is starvated without executing by the CPU. Turnaround time. Third definition is turnaround time. The time gap between the process is created and process execution is completed. Creation to the completion. Turnaround time. The time gap between the process is created and the process is completed. Can I say in this turnaround time, starvation time is also present? In the starvation time, response time is also present. Now tell me, process creation to the completion, how much of time it is taken to complete from the creation to the completion, that is called as turnaround time. Now tell me, turnaround time is more is a good environment or less is a good environment? Turnaround time is more is a good environment or less is a good environment? Means my process is completed faster is good or slower is good? My process is completion faster is good or slower is good? Can I say faster is good? So can I say turnaround time is less is a good environment? Will you agree? Turnaround time is less is a good environment, means my process is executing faster. Throughput, number of processes completed per unit of time. Throughput is nothing but number of processes completed per unit of time. In particular unit of time, how many processes are completed, that is called as a throughput. Again, in particular time duration, how many processes are completed its job, totally completed its job, is called as a throughput. Now tell me, throughput is more is a good or less is a good? More number of processes completes faster in a within a time is good or less number of processes completes is good? Can I say more is good? Will you agree? More is good. So response time is less is a good environment. Starvation time is less is a good environment. Turnaround time is less is a good environment. And throughput is more is a good environment. Throughput is nothing but number of processes completed at particular time duration. Number of processes completed in a particular time duration. Starvation time means a process. I need to discuss that once again. Please wait. Now tell me here, just I'll create a new situation. Suppose this is one CPU. There are 3 processes are there. Now BE8 M2, will you agree? One CPU can execute one process instructions. Now suppose BE8 M2, getting the point. CPU can execute only one process instruction execution at a time. Can I say, suppose when P1 is executing, P2 and P3 is starvated. When P1 is executing, P2 and P3 is starvated. When P2 is executing, P1 and P3 is starvated. When P2 is executing, P3 and P1 is starvated. So a process in its life cycle, how much of time it is not executing by the CPU, how much of time it is not executing by the CPU, how much of time it is waiting for the CPU time to get, how much of time it is purely waiting for the CPU time to get, that is called as a starvation time. Got the point? B8 M2. Life cycle means total creation to the completion. Now, what is the relation between this? One of the student asked. Very simple. Response time means whenever a process is created and first instruction is executed, response time. Starvation time means a process in its life cycle, how much of time it is not executing, waiting for the CPU, that is a starvation time. Turnaround time, process creation to the completion. In the turnaround time, creation to the completion, so starvation time also included. Response time is also included in that. When a process is created and completed, in between that, what is the time is there, that is called as a turnaround time. BE8 E2, got the point? Throughput, number of processes completed per unit of time. In particular time duration, how many process? Suppose I have one environment in my environment, n number of processes are completed per unit of time, but in your environment, n square number of processes are completing in your environment. Which one is the good? Suppose I have one environment, I have one operating system where n processes are completing one particular time duration. In your environment, n square processes are completing in time duration, same time duration. Can I say which one is good? Can I say your environment is good? Is that is clear? So try to go through this, and whatever the remaining points are there, so whatever the remaining things are there, I can't discuss now. States of a process: ready state, wait state, delayed state, suspend state. This we'll discuss in a tomorrow session. This will upload in the LMS. Is it clear? Ready state, wait state, suspend state, so many things are there. Tomorrow we need to continue with this. All of you clear with this point? So that I'll wind up the today's session. Type C in the chat box. Okay, then I'm going to wind up the today's session. Thank you very much.